What's up, guys? Welcome to The Know. I'm Ashley Jenkins, and recently 2K invited Rooster Teeth to visit their headquarters in Marin, California, and spend a little quality hands-on time with Borderlands, the pre-sequel. We were able to spend a couple of hours playing the game and taking our own game captures, so if what you're about to see is just amazingly skillful and wonderful and good, then I definitely did it, and if it sucks, it's probably Jack. We learned as much as we could about the characters and the gameplay as we could in the time we had, and we're going to try and pass all of that on to you as quickly and efficiently as possible. But, of course, as always, we'll leave it up to you to decide what you think of the game in the end. Ready? This is Borderlands, the pre-sequel. Overall, gameplay-wise, if you like Borderlands and Borderlands 2, then you won't be surprised to find this game is a lot of fun as well. It's still got the same core style, humor, and feel, but it also doesn't rest on its laurels, and there are several new elements unique to this particular setting and story. The one that's probably the most noticeable is the gravity, or lack thereof, which has a more significant impact on how the game feels than I would have realized just watching it. It still feels plenty familiar, but now you have more time while sailing through the air to lock onto an enemy and shoot him full of holes, or alternately shoot a slow-moving enemy out of the air. Jumps that would never have been possible in previous games suddenly become commonplace, which is helped by the double jump you get by venting oxygen. Which brings us to the next difference, oxygen. They call it Oz, presumably as an Australian joke, but who knows. The way this was talked about by the developers, I was expecting it to be a more precious resource, but I played through the mission several times, and not once did I have to worry about my oxygen levels. It's not a problem when you're indoors in an atmospheric environment, and a lot of the outdoor environments either have a ton of Oz laying around, or there are terminals you can use to raise or lower atmosphere domes. There are even cracks in some of the rocks when you're in long stretches of the outdoors that can fill your reserves. You can vent your Oz either to double jump and glide across the map or to slam to the ground, so if you run out, you can't do either of those things. When you're fighting enemies in non-oxygenated areas, you can take advantage of their need for those same reserves by shooting off their helmets or shooting them in their tanks. The new weapon types are also very familiar but new because this time around there are also laser weapons that look like a cross between lightsabers and Ghostbuster proton pack streams, but maybe that's just me, and cryo weapons that freeze enemies solid so you can bust them into meat sickles. They mix in really well with the other weapon types for good variety, though I personally was tempted to use them more than the others while playing just because, you know, they're new and shiny. So that's the new gameplay. Now let's look at the new characters. There are 4 options: Athena the Gladiator, Nisha the Lawbringer, Claptrap the Frag Trap, and Wilhelm the Enforcer. If you've played Borderlands 2, you'll be passing familiar with most of these guys. Claptrap is, well, Claptrap. Wilhelm was a boss early on, though by Borderlands 2 he's gone so cyborg as to be nearly unrecognizable, and Nisha also does her best to kill you if you take on the Showdown mission. Even Athena pops up in the Secret Armory of General Knox DLC, but since this story takes place before all that, they all count as the good guys here. Well, they're the guys here, anyway. Let's start with Athena, possibly the least insane of the bunch. Gladiator is pretty descriptive of her style. Her main toy is a Captain America-ish multi-use shield called an Apsis, but if she ever wanted to switch it out for a chakram and do her best Xena impression, I really think she'd be really good at it. Her middle Gladiator skill tree, Zyphos, really focuses on melee and inflicting bleeding damage on your enemies with the Apsis. At first, it's not a huge deal, so it's tempting to skill up elsewhere, but later on you get health regeneration as long as someone else is bleeding, and you do increased damage to any targets who are bleeding. At the top end, your fire rate and reload speed benefit from the number of enemies you've got bleeding, or they explode if killed while still bleeding. The top skill for this tree, a melee-focused Blood Rush, fits in here in kind of a weird way. Ideally, you'll use it on whatever target isn't bleeding, because if it inflicts a bleed, the cooldown is immediately reset and you can use it again. The other 2 trees, Psionic Storm and Phalanx, focus more on elemental damage and support respectively. Under Psionic Storm, the skills enhance your attacks, adding elemental damage bonuses. One of the early ones, Maelstrom, encourages you to use incendiary or shock damage to build up a stack of Maelstrom, which in turn allows you to do more elemental damage as you keep a streak going. Several of the subsequent skills rely on the same Maelstrom to build up their efficiency. It's a little bit odd that the skills don't encourage you to use the new elemental damage weapons, but it's not a huge deal. Phalanx, on the other hand, is very much more of a support class. One of my favorite skills under the Phalanx tree is health regeneration for me and my team as long as the Apsis is active, healing us more as the shield absorbs more damage. The ultimate skill for this tree is the one that really puts me in mind of Xena the most, I think, since you throw the shield and it ricochets off up to 4 enemies. Come on, you know exactly what I mean.
Button next to the red pipe.
Because I played as a Siren in Borderlands 2, this is the class that I went with, and I didn't do it justice, but it's actually a lot of fun to play. As you build your Apsis-focused skills, they gain bonuses like reflecting lasers and bullets back toward their origin and absorbing energy from those to pour into your shields and the shields of your teammates. When the Apsis absorbs elemental damage, it can store it up and then unleash it when you throw the Apsis. If you're a shoot one bad guy until he's dead and then move on to the next one kind of player, she might not be your Huckleberry, or, she might. I'm not here to judge. Nisha, on the other hand, has a couple of powerhouse options. She's a total badass. Also, kind of psycho, but Handsome Jack is pretty into that, so everybody's happy. This might actually be a really good class for players who don't have as much experience with the franchise. The initial skill is called Showdown. It's basically auto lock-on for enemies. As long as the skill's active, you just hold down the left trigger and choose the target you want to fill with holes, and your gun damage, fire rate, reload speed, accuracy, and bullet speed all get a boost. See how that would appeal to inexperienced players? I mean, come on, it appeals to me. The ultimate skill in the Fan the Hammer skill tree doubles your pistol, as long as that's what you're wielding, giving you a brief spurt of shoot from the hip double pistol madness that means you will really want to have a hand cannon on you at all times, in the same way that Athena might want to keep certain elemental types handy. If you go down the Riflewoman skill tree, the major skill is the Unforgiven, which adds a ricochet to every bullet you shoot in Showdown mode, sending it on to other baddies once it's punched a hole in the first guy, and when the skill ends, it triggers an explosion on everyone you shot, and it's seriously cool. Wilhelm the Enforcer is another fun character, and if you're a solo player, he might be more up your alley, and a lot of his skills lead right to the path he's set too far down by the time Borderlands 2 rolls around, as it upgrades them with awesome metal parts instead of easy human ones. The default tree, Cyber Commando, starts with basic combat upgrades and becomes a mix between upgrading your own personal wingmen, the aerial drones Wolf and Saint, and cybernetic enhancements like an arm that can punch enemies across a freaking room, or cybernetic legs that let you keep shooting even if you're sprinting. This is basically the equivalent of having a turret in Borderlands 2. As you develop through the tree, you gain regeneration trade-offs for taking damage, and ultimately unlock the Vengeance Cannon. I love that name, by the way, which activates a laser-blasting shoulder cannon whenever your shields are depleted. That's the story of a lot of these skills, boosting attributes as you take damage or fire, encouraging you to get in as much trouble as possible. If you want to focus on aggression, the Hunter-Killer skill tree may be more up your alley, as it primarily upgrades the Wolf drone, though they continue to work together. Halfway down the tree, Saint can paint targets for Wolf to attack, and ultimately, Wolf can unleash missiles. Going down the Dreadnought tree, on the other hand, pumps up your defensive abilities as well as the defensive drone Saint, like enabling him to boost shields for you and your co-op buddies, or ultimately overcharge you whenever he's summoned, stuff like that. The tree also offers skills like replacing Fight for Your Life with an aggressive termination protocol that allows you to walk, fire, and shock enemies, and generates a nuclear explosion if you die before you can get a second wind because, you may as well take them all with you. The last character, Claptrap, is, well, putting him in a class might give the wrong impression because this character is pure chaos top to bottom. Probably a lot of fun for a kid or a casual player if you want to co-op together, actually, but really mastering the way he works would take an extremely skilled player, definitely someone better than I am. There's no one action ability, for example. It's completely randomized depending on what situation you're in, and frequently the effects apply to both you and your friends. We ran across a bunch while playing. Gun Wizard, which hastes your guns, Mecra Magician, which gives you an awesome weapon buff but makes you horribly inaccurate, Torg Fiesta, which flings grenades at random in every direction as long as it's active, Trap, which turns you invisible and deploys a hologram decoy, Funzerker, which gives Claptrap 2 guns at once, and so on. Ultimately, down his main I love you guys skill tree, exchanging a high five buffs the entire party, but if you miss the high five, then everyone else is on their own. While the ultimate under the fragmented frag trap skill tree gives you one called Laser Inferno, which sets off a multi-element supernova and shoots lasers in every direction, and under Boom Trap you get pirate ship mode complete with cannons. Even though each skill tree unlocks a different action ability, that just adds to the pool of possibilities. Aside from the high five, there's still no way to guarantee the result. Claptrap's other skills are also co-op friendly, like giving you health regen and damage resistance when you revive each other. Under the Boom Trap tree, you get skills that work best when you're under pressure, like generating health whenever you kill an enemy at the cost of shields, or adding a chance for explosive damage to normal weapons. A lot of Claptrap skills also benefit from you and your team killing a lot of enemies at once, generating stacks of things like maniacal laughter, that is actually a thing you can collect, or frag stacks, all of which require killing enemies. Adding to the chaos, skills like the all the guns skill randomize expertise with one particular weapon at a time, making you better with that one and worse with everything else, which lasts until your frag stack depletes. Another skill randomly makes you better with melee but worse with weapons. Another boosts your defense but reduces your offense. See what I mean? It's utter chaos. He's actually a super fun, if unpredictable character to play, and since he doesn't need oxygen, he can save the odds for ground slams, double jumps, and gliding. Overall, I thought it was a fun experience, and even though I replayed the missions several times, time still flew. It's still chaotic, the co-op in particular is great, it looks good, and it's as bizarre as ever, so it lives up to the Borderlands promise. The game comes out on October 14th in North America, October 16th in Australia, and October 17th in Europe. Based on what you've seen in this video, what do you think of the game? Make sure you leave us a comment and let us know. And just so you know, while we were at 2K, we also had the opportunity to go hands-on with Evolve, so look for more on that from us soon.